When Muslim clerics gave azan on the election day on July 9, supporters of both candidates were claiming and celebrating victory. Some exit polls showed a narrow win for Jakarta Governor Joko Widodo, who's affectionately called Jokowi. Other quick counts pointed to a marginal victory for Prabowo Subianto, a former military general, whose running mate is Hatta Rajasa, former Minister for Economic Affairs. The uncertainty will remain until July 22, when official results are announced. But many observers say Jokowi is set to become the next president, with Yusuf Kala, a former vice president of the country, as his running mate. Jokowi is a former businessman who was mayor of Solo City and then governor of Jakarta. He's an outsider politician who would be seen as a president for the ordinary people. His rival Prabowo led the country's special forces under the dictatorship of Suharto in the 1990s. He's accused of human rights violations and seen as a strongman candidate. Suharto's regime, known as the New Order, brought impressive economic and social development, but also corruption and suppression. Since the fall of Suharto's rule in 1998, this is the first time a directly elected president will hand over the power to another. But this election is being seen as a choice between the past and the future. The nation with the world's largest Muslim population could now either return to authoritarianism or a deepening of democracy.
This elections is a choice between the past and the future. It's not just a matter of choosing between presidential candidates, but it's also a matter of choosing the fate of the nation. And what Jokowi represents is the future. He is the only candidate who is not from the so-called New Order, which is the past, which is what the authoritarian Suharto regime called itself.
Jokowi is the one who is completely new. He has no roots in the New Order of Suharto. He has nothing to do with all the old elites, very different from Prabowo Subianto. So people feel that it will be a new beginning. And they also feel we have now 16 years of democracy, that maybe he will give it a new push, a new spirit to get rid, for instance, of corruption and things like that. Really, the point is that Prabowo has very convinced supporters. But he has also others that do not trust him, really. He comes from the military. His background in the military is not completely clear. He was involved in kidnapping of activists, which he acknowledged himself. He says this was at that time necessary, and so, and he has a very fierce temperament. So it is very open. I do not want to speculate.
The US government is putting General Prabowo on the visa blacklist, but the US government has indicated if Prabowo is winning, of course the US government will lift the restriction. Of course there is the word diplomacy in this world. So he can travel to the US, and he kind of trying to mend the problematic relationship that he has with the US.
Don't forget, Prabowo is son-in-law of Suharto, and he is several times always mentioned he admire and respect of Suharto. And in interview with Alan Nine, he is a journalist from the United States. He said Indonesia needed the soft authoritarians because Indonesia is very complex. Without the heart, with the top leaders, it's difficult to control the Indonesians.
Jokowi's rival, General Prabowo Subianto, is supported by wealthy businessmen, the political elites, people from the Suharto era as well, and most of the conglomerations, big ones. And on the other hand, Jokowi, is supported by less business people. He's supported by most of the people in villages, in the urban area, the middle class. It's a detachment from from the very Suharto-like era to a very reform and hopefully very transparent and very open government.
Of the 185 million voters in the country, 67 millions were new voters, and there is visible excitement among the youth about Jokowi. As columnist Yulia Surya Kusuma said, Jokowi is a commoner, a self-made man. This sends out the message to the youth that they can have dreams and ambitions, that they can be active participants and not just bystanders watching for the ruling elite to make the decisions affecting their lives. It's a very clear departure from politics and the Indonesia of old.
It's just like a new hope for us. I mean, he's a new person, not coming from the past. So, yeah, hopefully we put trust on him and we hope that he can bring us into a better Indonesia.
What marks him as being different from leaders that we have had in the past is that he is very people-oriented, and that is his appeal. It marks a departure from past patronage politics, whereby the leader just led, you know, whereas Jokowi is his characteristics, his hallmark is his blusukan style, which is going making unexpected visits, and he goes and visits markets, village neighborhoods, and when it was flooding in Jakarta, he rolled up his pants and up to knee level and waded in the flood. It's just, you know, not very many leaders do that.
Yeah, we think we need a new person in the government, and we know his track record. We've experienced that he lead Solo and Jakarta, so it's like, why not for Indonesia?
Indonesia is a resource-rich nation and a member of the G20. At the present rate of economic growth, it is predicted to be among the top 10 economies by 2025 and top 5 by 2040. Both Jokowi and Prabowo have projected themselves to be nationalistic in the area of business. Both have spoken against the evils of capitalism and the neoliberal economic policies of the outgoing president, Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, also known as SBY. Jokowi has made some specific promises.
For sure, it's not going to be business as usual. It's going to be like a lot of game-changing policies, as Jokowi already mentioned earlier. First, for example, he's going to issue a new regulation that will revise the oil and gas law, in which he will provide certainty to international players in doing business in Indonesia. That's one of his policies that is going to be a game changer.
About 90% of the 240 million people in Indonesia are Muslim. Its constitution is based on the doctrine of Panchashila, or 5 principles, which include social justice and democracy for all. This nation is globally known for practicing a moderate version of Islam, but Christians and Muslim minorities, including the Ahmadiyya and the Shia, are discriminated against socially, legally, and politically. Some churches remain sealed in violation of Supreme Court orders due to opposition by extremist groups, but Jokowi is their hope.
At least Muslim minorities, including the Ahmadiyya, the Shia, the Sufi, the various sects within Sufi, Nasbandia, Ismailiyah, and many others, at least they will feel relief, because they are pretty nervous with Prabowo presidency.
Jokowi is a presidential candidate now. Probably he will become the president, where minorities will feel safe. He is absolutely against all kind of violence. I think he fully not only respects but feels what is the heart of our Panchasila philosophy, that every Indonesian and also every group of Indonesians are fully accepted, protected, supported, empowered without any discrimination according to what they believe. I think this is the point most important for us.
Jokowi's victory will ensure the minority that they're going to be fully protected. We've seen Yusuf Kala as the champion of as a champion protector of the minority. He's done his job well in Poso and in protecting the Ahmadiyya and Shia while he was in office. And there's already a proven results of this administration will surely protect the minority.
There were people saying that he himself always talks Pancasila. He says Indonesia is for all of them. He's not at all a sectarian type, but he was so strongly embraced by hardline religious groups that many of us were afraid if he is chosen as a president, and it is because they supported him, would there not be a payback time? Others supporting him said, no, he is strong enough. He would not allow hardline groups deflect Indonesia from Pancasila.
He says he wants to go back to the 1945 constitution, which is very authoritarian. It's a fascistic constitution.
As its foreign policy priorities, Indonesia seeks to strategically balance its relations with China and the US and raise its international profile by working through the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN. Indonesia was the largest recipient of Australian aid until recently, but both Jokowi and Prabowo have admitted that the relations between the two countries are now strained. It was recently revealed that Australia tried to tap Yudhoyono's phone, and also of the First Lady and others. At the time of the election, there was a feeling that Indonesia has not done enough to support its ASEAN member states over the South China Sea dispute. There have also been demands for Jakarta to speak out strongly against hostilities between Palestinians and Israelis. Some believe that Jokowi would adopt a more aggressive foreign policy.
The biggest challenge, and like usual, is Australia, because many people inside Indonesia consider Australia to be kind of hostile toward Indonesia, kind of looking down at Indonesia. At the same time, Australian public sees Indonesia as a threat in the north, Muslim country, Australia is Christian. Jokowi might have an easier ride because he is quite popular in the international community. He is acceptable by the US, the international market. If you take a look at various international bank surveys, they consider that Jokowi is friendlier toward the international market than Prabowo. Australia has its biggest embassy here in Jakarta. So Australia is Indonesia's first priority in terms of international relations.
It's going to be not business as usual, because Jokowi has already stated that he disagrees with SBY's policy in which zero enemy, million friends. For Jokowi, that is not the case. We have to take sides for Israel, for the Palestine, for the South China Sea, and for any other worldly affair. Indonesia has to take a stance. His diplomacy will be largely based on the strengthening of Indonesia's maritime affairs, including the setting up of maritime supervisions, resolving border issues, protecting the natural resources, and it's more on dealing with the neighboring issues instead of something which is far away in Europe or in North America. So it's going to be like a regional looking.